indecent images. He'll be sentenced next month. This report from our Home Affairs correspondent, Sally Chidzoy.
Carl Gardner was already on the sex offenders register when he was caught for the second time distributing indecent pictures of children. On the table, the police evidence that helped to trap him: 28 SIM cards, his 4 mobile phones and rolls of film. As a convicted sex offender, he was being monitored by police officers, but that didn't stop Gardner's mobile phone operation, distributing and swapping hundreds of disturbing pictures and video clips. Trading from his Norwich home, he was at the centre of a UK paedophile ring.
You take what they tell you with a pinch of salt. He had come across that he was doing well and that he wanted to rehabilitate, that he had no problems dealing with his offences, he was sure of his sexuality and he was never going to reoffend, and obviously that was not the case.
It was one of Gardner's own mobile phone numbers that trapped him. When he set up his profile on a mobile internet chat site, he registered the number. An alert moderator picked up a conversation he was having about abusing 2 boys and raised the alarm. Norfolk police ran Gardner's mobile number through their database and caught him.
He's facilitated the transmission of these photographs. But that was very, very much at the forefront of the work that we were doing, was the urgency to get out and identify these people, because some of them were indicating that they had access to children and we needed to get there fast.
Sending texts, Gardner had posed as a father of 4 boys, a mother and a young child to find other paedophiles. His phones led police to others in the network. His arrest led to 8 other arrests. And there will be more across the country.
It's always a worry. It's like all images that are ever recovered. In every image there is a victim, and no doubt there are victims from whatever part of the world they have come from involved in this paedophile ring. I do believe that some of those images have been taken from children within the UK, and we are carrying on investigations to confirm whether that is the case.
Paedophiles have long used computers to swap and distribute indecent pictures of children, but now they're increasingly using mobile phone technology. The SD cards are tiny and are easy to hide. The mobile phones can be disposed of quickly. It means police have to adapt their detection methods to find the evidence. Gardner hid his SIM cards in various rooms in his house, but for him there was no hiding place. Sally Chidzoy, BBC Look East.
Professor Julia Davidson of Kingston University is an expert in this whole area. She's at home in Essex now. Is there a typical person who becomes or is a paedophile?
I wouldn't say there is. It's very difficult at the moment because this area of research is very much in its infancy. When we look, for example, at the demographics of this type of sex offender, we see that they cut across social class. They tend to be male offenders, I would say. The mean average age in the system is probably about 35 to 40. So we don't really have a typical profile.
They share these images. How do they meet each other?
Well, they meet each other. There are virtual communities on the internet. The internet has no geographical boundaries, and sex offenders have been able to set up virtual communities where they're able to talk to each other freely about their fantasies, about what they want to do to children. They're able to swap indecent images of children, and they're able to communicate effectively across many geographical boundaries.
It's very difficult for the police, isn't it? Because, as we've seen with this mobile phone use now, the paedophile is trying to keep one step ahead.
I think that the paedophile is definitely one step ahead, but the police are in a race to try and catch up. The police have done a great deal of work, for example, proactive work, undercover, posing as children in order to try and catch sex offenders who are looking to groom young people online. And of course, as with this case, we are seeing increasing use of mobile phone technology alongside children being approached on social networking sites, for example.
Has grooming changed, the grooming of young children?
We're currently conducting the first European study of online grooming, and we're speaking to offenders across Europe in prisons. And what we're finding is that the grooming process seems to be much shorter. So whereas in the past offenders may have spent a long time preparing young people for abuse, now it seems that they're approaching young people directly, and the conversation in chat rooms on social networking sites seems to become immediately sexualised. So we think that we're seeing a change in the grooming process.
It's frightening, this, isn't it, for parents and for young people. Is there anything that parents can do? Do you think that young people are as aware as they might be?
We know that young people are using the internet from a very early age. They're very internet savvy. We think that the real risk area is with teenagers when they start to go into social networking sites. Perhaps parents should be looking at what kind of personal information young people are posting about themselves on social networking sites such as Facebook, for example, and also having a dialogue, an open dialogue with their kids about the dangers and the risks that they may face.
Professor, thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thanks.
A new survey commissioned by BBC East shows that half the people in Britain believe a significant number of troops will still be needed in Afghanistan 5 years from now, and that almost 2/3 of people believe the war in Afghanistan is unwinnable. The survey was commissioned for a special programme called Afghanistan, the War in the East. It's on BBC One tonight, and it's presented by Susie, who's in Colchester now.
Yes, Stuart, I'm at the University of Essex, where we're talking to people from across the region who've been affected by the war in Afghanistan. And of course, Colchester itself is home to thousands of troops who've served in the war. Armed forces from the east have made a huge contribution to the war, but it's come at a high cost. There are more than 1,400 military personnel from this region currently serving in Afghanistan. Most, around 400, are infantry on the front line. Others include medics, engineers and RAF squadrons. Reservists too are playing a greater role in the conflict. Royal Anglian TAs have just returned from Kabul. The biggest threat is now IEDs, improvised explosive devices. Of the 16 from our region killed in southern Afghanistan in the last year, all but 3 died in explosions. The latest was 20-year-old Luke Southgate from Bury St Edmunds. His body is due to be repatriated tomorrow. In the BBC's survey, 50% of those asked believed large numbers of British troops would still be needed in Afghanistan in 5 years' time. 63% of people felt British forces should be withdrawn as quickly as possible. That's the same figure as when the same question was asked last November. Since then, the Allied forces have been staging Operation Moshtarak to push back Taliban forces in Helmand province. When asked, 65% said the war in Afghanistan was unwinnable, a very small rise on November's figure. But the number of people who felt they understood the purpose of the British mission in Afghanistan has risen from 54% to 56%. Of course, politicians are acutely aware of how important public opinion is on the home front, and 3 of the region's MPs are taking part in this special debate tonight, including the Armed Forces Minister Bill Rammell, and that's in front of an audience. I'll be speaking to 3 members of that audience later in this programme to find out what they feel about the war in Afghanistan. That's after more news where you live.